Hello, I'm Gary Lyon and welcome to Access All Areas. Some fantastic footy being played. Teams and coaches are already under the pump and the two sides from Adelaide sit 1 and 2 on top of the ladder with a showdown to come on Saturday night. Welcome to Damien Barrett, Matthew Lloyd as always.
Yes.
Boys, lots to get through. The two poster children for the AFL have been the Gold Coast Suns and the GWS Giants in recent times. They played on the weekend. One came out smelling like roses, and it has to be said there's a bit of a smell of death around the other one, Damo. What are we hearing about the Gold Coast Suns and in particular Rodney Eade?
Yeah, well, Mark Evans, as we know, has gone up there as CEO, and it's an AFL appointment, that one, effectively. But he's realised that the club is in semi-disarray. It's a significant loss financially last year, but the coaching situation goes. Rodney Eade, as we know, is in the last year of a contract. The club is already talking about this round 4 game being a crunch point for the season, that one being against Carlton, and they've already been talking about that. And there's a feeling now, that the way I'm reading it, that they will move on Rodney Eade sooner rather than later if it continues to go the way it's gone. That loss last week to Brisbane was an absolute shock to them, and one that I think set up what happened on the weekend just gone, a 102-point loss on the weekend. They won't tolerate it much longer. That's my reading of it now.
Sooner rather than later, as in, what, the first 6 weeks of the year? Sorry,
they won't let it play out till around 22, the way I read it. And it could well be, if it goes against Hawthorn on this coming weekend and then the Carlton game, we're going to have a decision arrived at there. And they don't have the luxury of bringing someone outside in. The finances are really diabolical. And there's two guys on their books, Matty Promise, who has coached at AFL level before, and Dean Solomon, who wants to coach and has put himself in conversations with vacancies in the past.
Lloyd, is it more than the coach, or is he the one that ultimately the buck stops with?
I think it's a lot more than the coach, Gary. And I remember when Rodney got the job, I remember saying you couldn't have asked for a better job to take on than the Gold Coast Suns. Usually it's a coach that takes on a job, it's a basket case. They're a bottom 2 or 3 club, you know, a lot like Brendan Bolton's had to take on amongst other jobs that have been taken at other clubs. But O'Meara goes, Prestia, Burnell, Caddy, Swallows been injured, Charlie Dixon. They've got no leadership, the culture's poor.
But I mean, effort. Yeah, I mean, effort doesn't take anything. Doesn't take coaching, doesn't take O'Meara being there, or Prestia or anyone else. And the effort in the first quarter of both games, I mean, they got jumped in the first week, 14-7 to 3-4. That's the combined first quarter scores. And you would have thought the reaction, I don't think anyone thought they'd beat the Giants because we knew they'd hit back. But this sort of stuff is what's going to work most against the club.
Well, when you see vision like this, Lord, what are you reading?
Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at this stuff.
Well, Aaron Hall, just when you drop a mark like that, you follow up and try and make amends for it. But I just see a soulless football club.
Right.
And when it happens at round 2, I saw it happen to Richmond late last year, and they've been able to rebound at the start of this year. But that happened to Richmond late in the year, Damon. This is sad that it happened at round 2.
And look, as bad as this performance was, Gaz, as bad as what we're showing here is, it was round 1, and you pointed out a moment ago, by quarter time when there's 7 goals to 1. And that was what I think hit everyone between the eyes, and that is why the Rodney Eade situation has now got a very much a high point coming up on it in the coming weeks. Hawthorn on this weekend coming up, and then the Carlton game.
Yeah, and Gary Abbott's going to be the topic of much of the debate over the next 6 or 7 days by virtue of the fact that he's the highest profile player. And I said already, we need to be really careful about whether we pile in on him. But all I want to see from Gary is effort.
Yep.
And that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get 35 touches. But is he? And the question will be: is he up for the fight? Is he up to dig his heels in and say, righto, that is enough. I'll do whatever I can.
Look, there's a private/family issue with which he's dealing with, and we're not going to venture into that space, but what we can deal with is the footy situation. And he went to the footy club, again, just stating as fact, went to the footy club and sought a release from that club last year. He's going to do it again at the end of this year.
OK, that's all right. That's 20 weeks away. I'm worried about the next 20 weeks. I know what you're saying.
I think it's a forerunner to what we're seeing. I mean, you saw him on the weekend, and you commented yesterday quite strongly that you were seeing a disinterested player.
Yeah, and it's interesting with Gary, because we're hearing also he's playing in a role that he doesn't want to play at the Gold Coast Suns, that he's been taken out of the midfield more than ever before, and he doesn't like that. But that's where Gary's just got to suck it up. He's not the captain anymore. I'm not sure how he feels about that either. But you're just so used to high standards from Gary, which we're not seeing.
When there's adversity or when there are challenges, that's when you need the Abbotts to stand up, because you know the other guy, and he has previously, but I mean, the best example of all is Selwood and Dangerfield, and I know they rail against it and the club rails against it, but the fact of the matter is they were over 4 goals behind the last quarter, and the two most influential players who influenced the result of the game were Patrick Dangerfield and Joel Selwood when it needed to be done.
It was amazing, Gary, and we've seen it. I know they hate the Dangerwood tag, the Geelong Football Club, but there's a will and a want that a champion has, and these two are absolute champions of the game. They didn't want to lose. They just said, we've got to do whatever it takes to win, and some of these efforts it made me want to play again, Gary. That's because you think, I would love to play with these two players who are absolute superstars, but because they've got a want inside that not many other blokes have.
And in contrast, Zeeble, who'd been very good at that point, faded in the last quarter, as did his predecessor, Andrew Swallow.
Yeah, well, they had 2 possessions between them. Now, they're just pointing the finger at them because Higgins was outstanding on Dangerfield early. But when the crunch came, they were there.
They were. And look, they gave up a 31-point lead, North Melbourne, and they got to that lead, though, with some aggression, which may be misplaced and is going to have ramifications. I can't see how Scott Thompson plays this weekend on the back of doing this. Now, we might be able to argue he was falling and stumbling and whatnot, but that's an elbow to the head, and I would expect at least 1, maybe 2. This is just crude. Look, he's a big, bumbling, green ruckman, but you can't do that either.
So,
Braden Preuss.
Thompson was dumb and weak, I reckon. Well, there's nothing tough in that. I mean, it wasn't a king hit.
This is clumsy as much as
this is a bloke who hadn't played a hell of a lot of footy. His brief is to be tough and hard and make them earn it, and that was just a poor choice, and he'll probably get a week or so.
And the Demons, I think, on the same front, Gaz, have got some issues too. I mean, your man, Jesse Hogan, has done something inexplicable here, and this does jolt.
He's lucky they won, Damo, because they were 4 points in it. They were about to go inside 50. He does that, so... And this is Jordan Lewis.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Hogan one looks like he's in big trouble. I can't quite see as clearly here with Lewis, but either way, just dumb. I mean, it's really dumb. They played Geelong this week. They've had their best start, 2-zip. That might be open hand, I don't know. But Jesse looks to be in a lot of trouble. And, I mean, you're 0-2 when you're going down to Geelong to play the Cats, and you're one of your most influential players. So, dumb. They
would have arguably lost that game to Carlton under the previous year.
So they lost 9-10 to Carlton. The last 10 times they've lost 9, and they get behind.
They fought through yesterday.
Yeah, they did, and it was ugly and all that sort of stuff. They changed it up a bit.
Yeah, there was 2 things that happened in that game. The first, I love Salem's foot skills, Gaz, which have been poor from a defensive perspective as a team. He was brilliant, and also Oliver, who you love, turned the game in the last quarter. Simon Goodwin, he's a young, innovative coach. I reckon you can get too cute at times. And in the past few weeks, last week, he's had 8 defenders, 7 defenders, 9 defenders. And at three-quarter time, they said, let's go back to basics, 6 but defenders. And I thought they got back in the game. So there's a fine balance there with Goodwin.
Yeah, they found a way. And I must say, the Carlton, I thought, they were really good. A very, very good effort. Fremantle, not so good.
No, this is... they're playing football of 2, 3, 4 years ago. So they're not up to speed with where the game is at. Ross Lyon... I'd hate to be a forward at Fremantle because they had 17 inside 50s to half-time. They're 9 goals down. And you can see how ballistic the game is at the moment, don't they?
And as we watch this, Lord, the players kicking the ball aren't equipped to play this style of game anyway, are they?
No.
I mean, Zach Dawson ends up with it here or soon. And I mean, Lee Spur, a good player, but you don't want him doing and handling there. You don't want these type of players being required to play this style.
They've lost their identity as a football club. Remember, they used to be this hard, tough, you can't score against them, defensive. And then Ross, over the off-season, says the players said we got away from that last year. We need to go back to that. But we haven't seen any of this. And should Zach Dawson be playing anymore? They've got young guys like Collins, who they drafted.
Kieran Collins? Was it Kieran? No, Kieran's at the Dogs.
Another Collins from Box Hill Hawks. Sam Collins it is. And he should be playing. Zach shouldn't be playing anymore. There's a guy, Harley Ballock, who Ross has resisted playing. He should be playing. So they're way off the pace, Fremantle, as a football
Credit
club.
to Port, though. They were magnificent. They've been the surprise packet for me, hand high in the hair. Don't know what's happening ahead of that footy too, but their defensive work there that didn't allow them was great.
Yeah. Sam Powell-Pepper, one of the looming really good stories. In only his second game, had another good performance. Gaz, is he being a little bit... cheeky with what he does here to Lachie Neale?
Yep, he is, but this is the youth of today,
tap on the backside.
Young fella.
What would happen to him in your era, Guess?
He would have got lines. Rod Grinner on the centre square would have looked at that and said, all right, next time I go, and then... But that's the way the youth are. They wander into a club and they go, hey, here I am, let's go. And, hey, you can't knock Sam Powell-Pepper. I mean, he is good for the game.
And Koshy's helped turn that club around too, guys. Hey, 2 clubs who we didn't expect to be both 0-2, Hawthorn and Sydney. Just a look historically that... What happens to clubs when they do start 0-2? There's a very short list of examples that teams are bouncing back from that start to win a premiership, Lordo. I'm not yet writing the Swans off, for what it's worth. I think you can, from a premiership perspective, write the Hawks off.
Well, the Bulldogs broke history last year, didn't they, coming from outside the top 4 to win a flag. And I think Sydney, they're just decimated by injuries. I think they bounce back Friday night. They can get their season back on track. But you think Hawthorn, Collingwood, those clubs who are 0-2 are in trouble.
Tougher for the Hawks. I mean, Adelaide, 22 contested marks to 6. And make no mistake, clubs will now exploit what is perceived to be a lack of marking ability in the back half, whether it be Gibson, Birchall out now, whether Vickery as a ruckman getting back in the hole. I mean,
how's that broken down there, guys? And how's it break down here when you've got so many Hawks numbers around the ball?
Well, Josh Gibson in the years gone by would have been third man up over the top and sent it in, and this time he's getting caught under the footy.
He's in every shot there, by the way.
Yeah, well, that can happen when you get... I'm not putting a line through him, but, I mean, in years gone by, he would have backed himself to be off that pack and come third man up. And whether or not he's looked around him and he hasn't got the same experienced players with him or not, I don't know. But that is a concern, and, you know, they're just going through the growing pains that 3 premierships in a row present.
Bulldogs are going beautifully, did what they had to do against Collingwood in week 1 and then really matched it with the Sydney Swans. Liam Picken, guys, extraordinary finals player last year. And just we're going to highlight his here. Late in the game on the line. The 2 players there highlighted, Picken
on the left.
Further to the left, Bontempelli in the centre of the ground now.
Look at the run. This is what footy's about, Damo, and for kids or even other AFL players. He puts forward to Cunningham, he ran straight past Cunningham, now he goes to Mills, and Mills says, all right, I'll go with this stride for stride, but just can't get there. And that is what it's all about.
It was that sort of desire that actually got him an initial game of AFL footy about 8 or 9 years ago. And then look at this kick. He's weighted this kick too, guys, for Bont to run onto it.
Mind you, I'd ask Harry Cunningham what the God's name he was doing, letting Bont just cruise past him, but that's what the Dogs are doing.
They've found a will 2 weeks in a row. Collingwood hit the front in the third quarter in round 1 and then the Swans. But Gareth, talking about superstars and work rates, Lance Franklin you loved?
We're in different boxes, but we were sitting next to each other on Friday night, and the amount of times we just turned to look at each other and shake our heads. There hasn't been a better athlete ever, I don't think, in the game. He had 10 inside 50s playing as a sort of nominal key forward and more metres gained than anyone else. And when the game was at its... We talked about Bontempelli. He was doing the same thing repeatedly. Him and Sam Reid were outstanding. It was a great game of footy.
Josh Kennedy, guys, 7 goals against North Melbourne last week. Very quiet against St Kilda to 3-quarter time. But when that game was there to be won, he was the man.
He was. Brown had done a terrific job. In fact, St Kilda responded in the way that you'd hope, and I thought they were great. But I don't know. I mean, he's that good, Kennedy, and they got enough ball that he just went to sleep a few times, Nathan Brown, and he made them pay every single time.
I think St Kilda are playing, like North, such a ballistic style of football that they can fade out of games. And I thought their last quarter they just stopped to a walk and...
There's West Coast like that, wasn't it?
Oh, they're fantastic.
Can you get a line on West Coast yet? North Melbourne and St Kilda.
They wouldn't surprise me if they're top 4 and right in at the end of the year.
McDonald, Tim and Woody, is that how I pronounce it?
Yes.
He was back. And his first year, he went forward. Late last year, looked like he was going to be one of those small forwards. Went into the middle. Look at the score here. 82-80, fourth quarter. Brisbane coming after Essendon led comfortably. Had an influential 10 minutes in the middle.
Yeah, Fantasia there, kicked 5 as well. And I think the great thing about Essendon at the moment, you've got guys like Tip and Woody, Fantasia, Parrish, Collier, Merritt, all fast and all great flexibility. They can play back, forward or midfield. So they're going to be a hard side to stop this year, the Bombers.
That's an unbelievably valuable tool to have at your disposal, Damo, to be able to throw him in as a short-term wrecking ball.
And it took him a little bit of time, didn't it, Lloydie, to adjust to it. And John Worsfold persevered when people were saying go back last year, and it's worked, and I love it.
Great sign. Time for our lift hard-hitting moments, and I'll go first if you don't mind. We love these. These are big, hard moments, Damo. You would have thrived in these.
Yep, this is my
Look at this
segment.
Ling Jong gets one on the nose. He has his nose displaced. So what do? You don't go to hospital and miss 2 weeks of work. You go to the bench, you get it straightened up, and you go back on, and when it's your turn to go, you have to go. Back with a flight, doesn't know what's coming, bang, hard-hitting moment. Top that, David.
I think mine does trump yours, Gary. I'm going to go to the West Coast St Kilda game here, and look at Jaron Geary get in the way of the man we just talked about, Josh Kennedy.
Well, that's a double hard-hitting moment, because Kennedy was great as well.
Yeah, you couldn't question Kennedy either, but I'm going Geary more so, because he had his back to it.
Lloydo made fun of this.
You can't have a segment like this without the big Mummify. Shane Mumford, bang! And Jared Lyons, he's wondering what day it is there, because Mummify has just creamed him, and you can see why they set the tone early in the first quarter with moments like that, Kes.
Unbelievable stuff, lift harding moments. What about the banner watch? We put you on.
You love the banner watch.
Well, we put you on it because that's your area.
Well, we're going to go to the Bulldogs, and they're very good, the Bulldogs, and they've just decided to add the one outstanding game for the Vietnam Swans to Libba's 100 great games for the Dogs. I like it. There's a bit of symmetry with the Swans being the opponents.
Good to remind Libba that he played that, because I'm not sure he even knew he played. Very nice.
Rolling with the check today.
Lumberjack chic.
Not sure about that.
Thank you. Thanks, boys. Thank you for watching. Have a good week. We'll catch you on Access All Areas next Monday. Goodbye.